Folded by the cyclical part. Yeah. I mean, you can hold it how you like. Does your day, any day of the week, does it comprise of waking up, looking at your schedule and going? Can you see a week in advance or 2 weeks in advance?
We have a wonderful theoretical diary that goes on for months, if not years ahead. It's wonderful. And I look at it and think, this is fantastic. And then stuff happens.
Yeah.
Stuff happens every single day. And then things have to change. So you have to be completely flexible and unfazed by it all. You just got to get on with it. Now, this morning, for example, I'm messed you about big time, but you're the most generous host I've ever met on a musical podcast.
Just not one of me. It takes a team. It takes a team to be patient.
It takes a village to educate a child. It takes a team to de-stress people.
It really does. I think about friends with children, and childcare is so expensive. We joke about it, but we're starting to get a bit serious. You know, can we live on a commune and look after each other's kids around our own work schedules?
I have 3 children, but they're all very big now, and they still talk to me, which is nice.
Yeah. You're a good dad then.
Well, they still talk to me, so let's not get carried away here, you know. No, but the youngest one, Tommy, is great. I'd run out of jam jars at home for making jam, so I phoned him up and said, Tommy, because he's got a store, Stroud Green Road. So I said, if I need to buy something online, I buy it through him, so it's delivered to his shop because he's always there.
Smart.
So he's my sort of Amazon local delivery point. So we got a great relationship, and with the other 2 as well. So, you know, with kids, you can't ever plan things. You know, parents sort of sit down and say, now this week we're going to do this, do that. We're going to go out Tuesday night. We've got a babysitter, da-da-da-da-da. The kids just say, nah, don't want to do it. And you have to then factor in a whole lot of things, and you can't ever work without variables. So my life is working with variables and also deciding what's important and what's not. You know, so you want to go to an event and you feel you must. So that means cancelling lots of other things. My office, they're probably permanently angry with me, actually, but they don't say it when I come in.
Do you give them good Christmas presents?
No, not really. What we do is I'm mean, tight-fisted. Everybody knows that. Now, what we do is we sort of go out and have a lunch together about once a week or once a fortnight of the constituency team in one of the local cafes and just chat things through. Mm-hmm. And so it's a very nice relationship.
I think about when kids learn stuff, often it's through rebellion, acts of rebellion, right? You know, music, for example, is a great one. You know, stay on a Monday night to do your homework. No, mum or dad, I'm going to go out and see a gig. It's like an act of rebellion. And at that gig, they might learn something about themselves, about other people. Is it interesting for you to be, you know, someone who celebrates rebellion, but also that you do live inside a construct there has to be some order?
Well, I think we all do, actually. I mean, even the most rebellious people have to have some order about what they're doing. I mean, you can't organise a rebellion to go and demonstrate somewhere if you don't tell other people about it. If you turn up on your own with a flag on your own, you look a bit random. You know, it doesn't kind of work, does it? Yeah. You've got to be there. You've got to be a group of people. So humans do have to organise with each other. But it's how you relate to the other people you're with. And I obviously move in a political world a lot of the time, and people there are very sort of single-minded, can be personally very selfish, and assume everybody has the same view as them, and assume they can all do things together. They don't necessarily really know the other people they're with. And so they make lots of assumptions about their opinions and their attitudes, which may or may not be true. Yeah. And just because people turn up together, I don't know, say to oppose nuclear weapons, some would do that from a comprehensive political analysis of the globe and global forces and arms and so on and so on and so on. And Others would do it because they just think it's morally wrong, but they might have what the first person I mentioned thinks of as quite right-wing views on lots of other things. So you have to get to know the people you're with. I was last night. I got back very, very late from Birmingham, and when you get back late from somewhere, you don't necessarily feel like going to sleep straight away. So I ended up watching John Kenneth Galbraith's remake program from the 60s and 70s on the Cold War. Absolutely fascinating, because he went into the sort of moral dilemmas and arguments by both the Soviet Union and the USA. And I should have known this, but I didn't. He apparently was posted to Berlin in 1945. Well, he was an intellectual, basically. He was in Kennedy's cabinet and things like that. He was a very intellectual guy. And he was posted to Berlin in 1945 and spent a lot of time working with the Soviet Union and French and British and so on. And he said he was of the school that wanted there to be no Cold War and wanted to be that working relationship with the Soviet Union, recognizing there were, yes, obviously differences, but he could see a future for the world where there wasn't a Cold War and there wasn't a nuclear arms race. And he said this carried on for 2 or 3 years after the war. Then eventually McCarthy and the Cold Warriors all took over, and we ended up with an arms race and the Korean War. You begin to understand some of the intellectual and moral basis of what that later becomes a massive political ideology. That's not about music, but I just thought I'd let you know. I lead a quite busy life, and I enjoy that. But you've got to remember, you should never be in too much of a hurry not to talk to somebody who might appear a bit random and a bit peculiar, and come on, yeah, we need to tell you something. I say, okay. I've got ears, I'm listening, come on, tell us. And so you don't dismiss people all the time just because of their attitude, appearance, approach, or anything else. You've got to understand people. That way you learn more.
Life can be immersive if you can let it.
Well, that's not a bad thing.
No, it's a great thing, life being immersive. You can go out there and smell the smells and see the trees and see the different colours of autumn, and in your case, speak to your constituents when you're walking through the park.
And my allotment.
And your allotment.
Yeah.
That's one of your jobs.
One of my jobs, yeah. I was there on Saturday morning. I've planted garlic for next year.
Yeah. Now
Do you want some?
I would love some garlic.
It's not ready yet. You've got to wait for it to grow.
I'll give you my address. Doesn't it grow quicker if there's a big red moon? Like there's been some supermoons recently, because it is getting more light overnight where it wouldn't be. So are they growing quicker this year, garlic?
Do you really believe that?
Can find out. I do. Yeah, it's light, isn't it? Think, okay, you're in a schoolroom, you're growing something. That light that you have plugged in, it's only a small light, but it does a lot of good.
Yeah, I suppose it would. Yeah. Well, you plant garlic in sort of November, December, and then that way it starts to germinate, and then you get a crop next. July, August, that sort of thing. It's not that quick growing.
Good for the kids.
If you want something growing quick, radishes.
Yeah,
try radishes. They grow quick.
101 part-time jobs is the name of this show.
Okay,
and
well, I've got 101 part-time jobs.
Have you ever played an instrument? I feel like I should know this. Have you played an instrument? Did you play? You must have played an instrument at school.
No.
Not even a recorder.
My life was such that I was inflicted on a grammar school, or the grammar school was inflicted on me. Super English, super judgmental, super competitive. And the first week I'm in the secondary school, I looked down the timetable, Thursday afternoon, music. Okay. So we'll go to the music room. And the teacher was a little odd, stood us all around the walls of the room, all 32 of us or whatever it was, 32 of us, in alphabetical order. And then we had to go, each one said, you had to give your name, so he could remember who was who. But he must have known that in the first place. Otherwise, how would he have put them in alphabetical order?
Good point, yeah.
Okay. So it gets down to me. So I give him my name. Corbyn, sir. Have you got any brothers? Yes, sir. How many? 3. They were all utterly tone deaf and totally useless at music. Get out.
They're older than you. The teacher
all
had
older
them
than me.
in
So
their class before.
the family had been marked.
Yeah.
Card had been marked.
Yeah.
And so that was...
Thank you, older siblings.
And then it comes on to instance, oh, forget him, he's no good.
Yeah.
So I never got a chance. I mean, yeah, we fiddled about making a skiffle band at home. Yeah.
Can you give me a memory of this skiffle band?
Oh, if only an agent had come by, if only a label had been there at the time, you know, we'd have done it. We had an old barn next to our house, so we made a skiffle band. We got a tea chest. Remember tea chests?
No.
Tea chest is a sort of box it's quite a big box in which tea was delivered to stores and things. And so a tea chest was quite a handy thing to store stuff in and things like this. Yeah. But what you could do is turn it into an acoustic instrument. So you turn it upside down. So the open end of the tea chest is on the ground, facing the ground. You'd make a hole in the top, in the middle of the top of it, and then have a piece of wood, usually a branch from a tree, attached to the side of the box, and that would then branch over it like this. Yeah. So you'd have a taut piece of string going down into it, and then you would do this on the string, boing, 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 and you'd get the acoustic sound from the tea chest itself.
And I suppose you could pinch it so you get different pitches.
You got it. The science was amazing. Yeah. We sometimes used 2 pieces of string, 2-string guitar.
So did you play that?
Yeah, we tried this. We played this thing, and then a drum is relatively easy to invent, you know, and that sort of thing. And then we tried to make a guitar. That's a bit harder. That's a bit harder because you've got to create the box, and you've got to spend a lot of time fiddling around with plywood and things like this. So we stuck basically to the drums and the acoustic tea chest, but
jamming.
We did a lot of that, but sadly. There was no neighbours to be disturbed because it was in the middle of nowhere. So we didn't even have the chance of an agent visiting somebody's house and hearing us. And
lost forever. It was a good feeling. You remember that feeling of doing something with your pals? You're doing something together. You're making something that didn't exist before.
There was 3 or 4 of us doing it. Yeah, this is good. This is good. So we'd take it in turns to play it.
Yeah, brilliant.
So it could have caught on. Who knows?
What were you called?
We debated lots of names. We never got to a name. We were probably something as anodyne as the Barn Band.
Yeah. It's not bad. I can see it catching.
The Barn Band?
Barn Band.
Yeah.
You could have barn bandages.
Barn bandages.
Barn bandages. Merch. Yeah.
Barn doors.
Barn doors. Yeah.
Barn pots. You know. Yeah.
And your fans would be called the Barnabys. Anyway,
we could do
this.
I've tried to get my children to play musical instruments, and I used to get up very early every Tuesday morning to take my middle son to violin lessons.
It's very supportive.
Yes, and I would go to this person's house and he would learn the violin, and I thought, why am I doing this? It's 7:30 in the morning and I'm listening to this. Anyway, he didn't carry on with it. So I love music. I love a variety of music, and I like listening to classical and other forms of music. And then I asked myself the question, most of what we call classical music is actually Central European classical music of the 18th and 19th century, most of it. Obviously there's 20th century music, but that's slightly different. Then you think those people that we listen to, sort of Haydn, Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, they were all kind of lucky because they managed to chat up somebody in an aristocrat or minor royalty who sponsored them. How many more absolutely brilliant musicians were there that we'll never know of?
Yeah. And that's happening now. I mean, we talk a lot about Oasis and Blur, and so many of them were on... well, what's now Universal Credit, but back then the Dole, right? And that is an investment into the arts.
Well, it's why we have to look at it in the whole. One is for the state to support art and music in the way that, for example, the Netherlands pays for public art, which is a way of getting paintings in streets, shopping centres and so on, which I think is wholly good, sculpting and so on. Yeah. It's also what we do in schools. Now, my experience was a sort of super hierarchical, competitive English grammar school, which is fine if you're hierarchical and super competitive and you do very well out of it. But the problem is the other 90% don't. But which is why I was looking at all this in policy making, and I came down for the idea of a pupil arts premium. I think it could have a better name, but I'll explain the principle behind it. Was that we provide a ring-fenced lump sum to every school, primary, secondary, etc. And the condition is that every single child must be given the opportunity for learning a musical instrument. Every single child must have some kind of theatrical opportunity in school or outside school, things like that. Every single child must have art and music education. And so if you don't ring fence it, it won't happen, because a school budget, if you're a head teacher, you're stuck with all kinds of competing demands, special needs kids, etc., etc. So with all of that. And so that budget will be eaten up. You look at schools now, it's only the private sector schools that actually provide full music education for everybody. Some state schools do it very well. Many barely do it at all, or do it as a often after-school option. Well, that's not good enough, because music is a central part of our being, a central part of our understanding, and it brings people together. So I'm very determined to do that. And it means also you then move on, because by funding school, theatre, music, etc., some of that money will find its way into local theatres. Some of that money will find its way into venues. Some of that money will find its way into music instrument suppliers and so on. So it would be, if you like, a down payment for a creative future.
We need that. Our videographer, Tim, here, he was a teacher. He was a vice principal,
assistant head teacher.
Assistant head teacher, and he had to leave because the budgets kept on being cut. So many people were being put on sick leave. All the kids, they didn't have any support. They had to find instruments from charity. Have local artists call out. I mean, that's happening now. But Ofsted has just changed its rules, I'm told, to say you can't be an outstanding school if you don't have a music programme.
Well, that is one of the first positive things I've heard about Ofsted for a very long time.
You can give Ofsted a review now.
Well, I think the school inspection system comes from the wrong angle, comes from the wrong end. Ofsted is actually a word of fear in every staff room, and it's a word for older children who understand it, they're a bit scared by it, and it ends up creating unbelievable levels of stress and doesn't necessarily have much positive effect. I changed the name, but I would rather the principle be behind the old HMI inspector, which was one where the inspector would come into the school, spend some time there, and give a supportive analysis, and then work with the school where the inspector, she or he, thought there were deficiencies, work with them on it. Right. Ofsted is too blunt, too brutal, and when you see Ofsted being used by estate agents, you have a good or outstanding school next to you. The other school is ipso facto a failure. And the failure is remembered for years and years and years, even if it's long, long past.
People won't want to move there.
No, that's right. You got it. And then you end up with the school losing pupils, losing staff, and it goes on a downward spiral. And we should value our schools and bring them much more into the community. And that's where your point about music and music education, there's a lot of people who want to contribute to education in lots of ways. I obviously understand all the issues about safeguarding of children and so on. But I do think there's a whole lot of musical and artistic expertise in the community that we're just missing out and forgetting. And so, where are we here? We're in Tottenham, but not far from Finsbury Park. We've got a massive variety of people living around here with huge different musical backgrounds and genres. Bring them into the schools. Let's have Andean pipe music. alongside everything else.
And have places,
for example,
have places that home them. We're at New River Studios at the moment, and I mean that is the stage that will be the stage for so many different types of sounds, whether it's punk or hip hop or electronic music. Having this bar and venue, and they do great pizzas, by the way. I've spent a couple of New Year's Eves here, have a great time.
It's your go-to New Year's Eve venue, is it, this one?
This is one of the good ones, yeah. So if you want to put it in your diary this year, I might be here dancing where we are sat right now. But they are...
I don't dance.
You don't dance? No. Not at all?
No.
You don't swing your hips?
No, because I've tried in the past. My children are deeply embarrassed, so they say, please go outside. And my wife just prefers me not to be there.
Well, maybe we need to find a venue where you feel comfortable.
Room on my own with some music, that's fine.
But these places exist that are the very home that let people grow as artists. I mean, there's an immense amount of pressure on these venues.
Yeah, we look at the cost of a venue. Now, in the past, a group of young people put a band together. They could usually manage to get somewhere to rehearse, friend, somebody with space and so on. Now, no. Too expensive and just prohibitive. And that's why with the wonderful Sam Sweek through the Peace and Justice Project, we've done this series of concerts, Music for the Many, all of which are designed about getting live music venues supported and retained. And I don't know how many events we've done. Sam, how many have we done? 25?
And they're all great bands. These are great emerging up-and-comers, if you like.
Well,
artists.
Sam is a dab hand at spotting bands that want to play and are good and so on. And then hopefully they do well from it. And hopefully our contribution is a bit of yeast in the pot, which helps the whole live music venues to grow. Yeah. And to me, that's so important. And also, don't treat kids like previous generations were treated in school. Everybody is a bit musical. We're surrounded by music all the time. And the other thing I find strange is the way in which you can now access any music from anywhere at any time. Just take out your phone, you can access any... I grew up with the idea that live music almost didn't exist where I grew up, in a small town in Shropshire. To listen to anything, you'd have to go and buy a record. So you'd cycle off to the town, queue up with everybody else to buy an EP, then take it home and play it to death.
So if you don't like it,
by which time the needle had sort of walked through the records, that was done. You know,
if you don't like it, then you listen to it enough until you do like it.
Well, that's right, because you've invested. It used to be 6 and 6.
6 and 6.
6 shillings 6 pence.
Okay.
But when there was a lot of money for those days. That's what I earned once a week delivering newspapers on a Sunday. So that was a whole Sunday to buy one EP. To me, at that time, they were so valuable. I've still got them. I don't know what I'm going to do with them.
Why
these worn-out EPs at home? You know.
I mean, why is music important? And I'm going to sort of give part of the answer there, but it is self-expression, and self-expression creates a better society.
But it's also the message that the composer or the author gives to it. Now, if it's not vocals, if it's Peter Maxwell Davies, Farewell to Stromness, things like that. Now, I knew Peter Maxwell Davies, and he was a live, wonderful musician, and he loved Orkney and so on. He wrote this fantastic piece called Farewell to Stromness. If he'd called it Waiting for the Ferry to Get to Stromness, what would our impression of it be? So the title of classical music, particularly, I think is very important,
and that's the message.
Well, it's not.
It's part of the message.
It's part of the message. And so, what I think is quite funny to do is, if you've got a group of kids together, you must have tried this as a music teacher. Play some famous piece of classical music to the class, and say, "Okay, what name would you give that?" Because most of them would probably have never heard it, because most kids do not grow up listening at any time to classical music. I don't know what it is that we're inflicting on patients in hospitals. Every hospital radio plays Bolero about 25 times a day. I suppose it's an encouragement to leave the hospital, isn't it, really?
You learn more about politics from artists than you do from politicians a lot of the time. take into account the last couple of years, KNEECAP have been having a very strong message, an anti-genocide, pro-Palestine message. There's Palestinian solidarity, and Bob Vylan, lots of bands have allowed it. There's also Billie Eilish, who just last week.
It's been the making of those bands, actually.
Yeah.
KNEECAP and Bobby Vylan have done well out of it in a good way. Yeah. I'm not critical of them at all, quite the opposite, but they've done it in a very good way.
Well, people that do criticise, you're getting clout for your message. Well, they had that message before they got the clout. And Billie Eilish was just criticising billionaires. She donated them $11.5 million, I believe, and she was sat in a room with some tech billionaires last week and said, what are you doing for the goodness of the world? How important to you is it that artists use their platform?
Absolutely crucial. Because
whatever size of platform that is.
Yeah, I think you should. And I think there's nothing wrong whatsoever in an artist of any sort saying, well, actually, I believe what's going on in Gaza is wrong. This is why I believe it's wrong. Or I'm donating the proceeds of this number to refugees around the world. That sort of thing. That's good.
Yeah.
And so... but there's some musicians, she's just retiring now, Joan Baez has spent her whole life basically performing music for everybody else. I don't know if she's particularly wealthy. I have no idea. I suspect not. She obviously has a very strong personal moral message about the kind of society she would want to live in, of respect for people and looking at the opportunities for people that have been cast aside by society. I mean, I don't know if you know any of her music. One of them, show me the prison, show me the jail, and I'll show you the prisoner whose life has gone stale. There but for fortune go you and I. And so she's looking at the possibility of the goodness in somebody rather than the position that they've found themselves in. Now, that's a very, very powerful message. Yeah. And she has spent her life giving that kind of message out. She's probably influenced far more people than 1,000 speeches from 10,000 politicians.
Yeah. As a politician, you have to give data, right? You have to give strong facts. Sometimes emotion resonates. It lands more than numbers do.
Yes, and sometimes you read the lyrics rather than listen to them, and you think, wow, that is very powerful, or maybe not. I mean, you must have heard Tom Jones singing Delilah.
Yeah.
Anyone with a car radio must have heard Tom Jones singing Delilah. Yeah. If you read the lyrics of Delilah, it's pretty awful.
I can't think of them. Are there some... What's it really about?
A guy with an unrequited love affair with Delilah, who takes up with somebody else, so he goes and stabs her. Yeah. And he's waiting to be executed for killing her. It's not a great story.
It's not a great message.
No, it's terrible.
Yeah.
And I must say, I heard Delilah, and you hear the bit, why, Delilah? And then you read it, you think, wow.
Who's
what
making
have I listened to this rubbish for all these years?
Who's saying it's her fault?
No.
That's bullshit.
Of course it is. Yep. I agree. I agree. And then I love listening to rap, but it's sometimes very hard to follow it all, and you can never find the written out lyrics of rap, can you? Because there aren't any, because it changes so fast. But the skill of a rap artist in with apparently no prompting whatsoever is kind of flight of the mind.
Yeah, and there's levels to it. K Tempest, he says how there's so many rhythms within the flows within the flow. I go down grime rabbit holes on YouTube where it's all kind of late night radio shows, almost face to camera, and Skepta has that great line, I made a mill off a broken screen, which I thought was great. He's made £1 million off a broken BlackBerry screen, filming him and his brother JME and their crew, Boy Better Know, and they've made this career out of being themselves. It's very inspiring, isn't it?
Right. How do we take it forward to ensure that the musical genius that is there in everybody, to some extent, how do we make sure that actually comes to fruition?
How have you kept your energy and even one step further, compassion for yourself and what you do and the people that you're working with and your constituents, but on a wider level, society. How do you think, when you've been on an open top bus in the snow and there's been maybe a few people there, a smattering of people there, how have you kept that energy?
Well, I admire them for coming.
Yeah.
Wow, well done, you guys.
I think some bands would say the same when they play a town and there's 5 people.
Yeah, that must be it. You're in some grotty old van. You drive for hours and hours to do a gig somewhere.
Yeah.
On a Tuesday night, on a wet Tuesday night in West Yorkshire in some small town, and about 20 people turn up.
Is that not too different from what you've done?
I've been to many places where very few people had turned up. I remember we did a campaign around the Guildford Four. There were 4 young people who were wrongly convicted. Eventually they were freed and released, and they'd never done what they were accused of doing. And we did a public meeting for them in Worthing. Somebody phoned me up from Worthing and said, Jeremy, can you come and do this meeting in Worthing for the the Guildford Four, rather? I said, they said, it's going to be good. We'll get a lot of people. There's a lot of people very interested in the case, and it's going to be a big attendance. I was slightly sceptical. I know Worthing has changed a bit. But I said, are you really sure about this? Oh, yeah, it's going to be great. You just give us a date, and you be there, and we'll get other speakers. So the person who was then organising it managed to recruit, I think, 6 other speakers, far too many for any public meeting. So that means there's 7 of us on the platform plus the chair. So you've got 8 people on the platform. So we get to this quite substantial church hall for the event. We outnumbered the audience 2 to 1. That's right, you outnumber the audience 2 to 1. You just get on with it, So, but you have to support people when they're doing something against the grain. Now look at it another way. The woman who organised that event was very passionate about this miscarriage of justice, and she was prepared to go out to her neighbours and say, look, these guys didn't do it, they are innocent, we've got to speak up for them. That's brave, because her neighbours were always saying, what are you on about? They've been done for murder, they're obviously guilty. And so you've got to remember that if you're in the kind of lucky position that I'm in to be able to at least give a voice to something, you've got to admire those people that are trying to give a voice to something and being suppressed in the process. So it's about that. And it's also recognising what brings about change in society.
I think people, and when an idea grows and grows and grows, much like a band or an idea, they start the tour off with 5 people, and by maybe the next tour there's 10 people in the same town because they've told their friends. Their friends are on board with the idea. For me,
that's right. So you ideas and compassion grow with somebody taking a stand.
And that's a risk.
It's a huge risk.
A lot of circumstances.
It's a huge risk. And so people that set up a particular music genre, something they absolutely believe in, everybody thinks they're bonkers. But they continue doing it, then they achieve something. So it's the same with moral arguments. It's the same with wider political causes. And just imagine somebody in sort of Midwest USA decides that they don't think the USA should be armed within an inch of its life with nuclear weapons, and goes out and tells their neighbours about it. They're not going to get a great reception.
No.
But somebody will listen to them, and somebody will say, well, actually, they stood up, so I can stand up. You strengthen people, and so you should never be too high and mighty. You can't learn from people as well.
I think that's a great way to live, is that I often think that the people in the room who can raise their hand and say, I don't know what that means, what you just said, I don't know what that means, could you explain it to me, rather than nod along and pretend like you do, that person at the end of their life is going to be very knowledgeable because they've been vulnerable enough to say, I don't know, could you tell me?
I've been at lots of meetings in Parliament with MPs where they're meeting some scientific expert or economic expert and so on, and they're all sitting there. Very good, very good, very well. They haven't got a clue what the person's talking about.
Right.
Can I give you a little story about that with Haringey Council once?
Please.
I go to this I'd just been elected as a councillor. This planning officer speaking, and he said, I'm worried about the number of voids that are going to be created as we're doing this big development. It was Wood Green Shopping City, and so on and so on. And he said, so I said to the guy, an older councillor who'd been there before, I'd just been elected next to me, I said, excuse me, what's a void? He says, shut up. This guy knows what he's talking about. I said, no, what is a void? He said, shut up and listen to him. He's one of the best officers we've got. He knows exactly what he's talking about. Thanks, mate. So I go to the council on the other side. One councillor said, sorry to trouble you, because I know you're listening carefully, but what is a void? She said, don't ask questions. These people are very important. We pay them a lot of money to run council services for us. So I said, I'm sure we do, but what is a void? She said, shh, just listen to him. So we go through this incredibly long presentation about the development of Wood Green Shopping City, and it went on and on. So eventually they said, any questions? And so there's a few questions, and I stick my hand up. Councillor Corbyn, I said, excuse me, something you kept saying I don't fully understand. What is a void? All the other councillors says, yeah, what is it? Not one of them knew.
Yeah.
And this guy just got away with it.
And policies could be made.
And that was,
are made.
he was
in that
about
way.
to spend millions of pounds on something, and people clearly didn't understand most of what he was saying.
Yeah.
And we did spend millions on it. Because they all thought, since they're in a prominent public position, they should know everything. They don't.
I mean, now more than ever, with all different acronyms and AI, I mean, that's a whole different thing. But there are new things that started yesterday.
I think you've made a most important point about how the way we could go forward in analysing situations, so that in the analysis of situations we can take forward the possibility of a social change coming in the future, which may have happened in the past but is not happening at the present time. And we have to bring in an analysis with the financial implications of everything that we're doing, and that way we'll come to a conclusion which will be acceptable to most people who understand what we're doing. And so I think this is the way forward.
There's a lot of action.
Do you think that could work?
I think so. I think you need to know all the facts before you do something.
I think I've got a future there as an advisor to government.
You or I?
Both of us. We could go there talking this bullshit and get away with it.
A lot of big decisions and money, like you say, is spent before really knowing the implications or how it works.
Yeah,
it's selling, right? There's a lot of marketing in ideas.
I went to one meeting where there was a very funny woman counsellor. She said, as they're talking, she said, quite loud voice, says, bullshit barometer going very high.
You should use that. You should take that.
It's a good one, bullshit barometer. Anyway, that's away from music, but you know what? It's about life and about understanding. Well, we all think we're open-minded on music. We all think, oh yeah, I'm open to any new music, any genre. Yes, of course I am. But then you go through your own life and think of the controversies. I mean, when Bob Dylan picked up an electric guitar, oh God, the world collapsed for some people. They said,
what did you think?
I thought it was fine. Actually, to be quite honest, I didn't really understand the difference between an electric guitar and an acoustic guitar. So I sort of said to people who are going on about this, what are you talking about? It's just a guitar. Oh, God, you don't know anything. Oh, go away. Get back to your books.
Sounds familiar.
So they just kind of dismissed my objections. But then you then go on to things like the development of rap, of grime music, it's very different. It's a totally different thing. And electronic music was incredibly controversial. Yeah. How can music be electronic? Music is an instrument. What's it? How can you get music with just messing about with electronic sounds? Yeah. Well, you get the most amazing electronic music. Music is a marriage of ideas and technology. Never forget that. Mm-hmm. The technology of a guitar didn't come from nowhere. The technology of a drum didn't come from nowhere. The technology of an acoustic guitar, of an electric guitar, and so on. So I think we just have to keep our minds open. So the next piece of totally different music that comes along, I'm going to be there listening to it and saying, wow, that's good. It keeps your mind alive.
Yeah.
I get sent lots of poetry because I did this poetry book 2 years ago, Poetry for the Many. There's only one poem of mine in it. The rest is a selection of poems made by a number of people. And it's sold very well. And we've had lots of poetry events all over the country. And at all of them, I said, look, I'm very interested in producing another book called Poetry from the Many. So I get sent a lot of poetry.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
I really struggle to understand some of it.
Okay.
You read it and think, God, there's something in there, but I'm damned if I can find it. That's good. That's good, because it means I've got to try and get into that person's mind or why they wrote it.
I think that's
same with music.
That's what people mean by saying go out of your comfort zone, right? I think that's what
my comfort zone would be reading a traditional Coleridge or something, or Shelley or something like that, saying this is my comfort zone because I've lived with that and maybe I hope I understand it and so on. This,
but you've got to give it time.
You've got to give it a go.
Yeah.
Are you influenced by the music that you grew up with, or is your mind open enough that you take in completely new music, or do you feel a sort of sense of, hang on, this isn't as good as what I grew up with? Because the biggest musical influence on your life is when you're a teenager, isn't it?
Yeah, that's when
that sits in your mind.
Yeah, I often think when you love an album, your favourite album, and I'm going to ask you what your favourite album is in a sec, it's half the album and half you and your experiences, what you were going through with that album. Maybe you were going through a breakup, maybe your parents separated, maybe you moved town or you went to uni, maybe you were having a road trip. You associate the album with that and it puts you back in that. And I think that's a very special thing. So what's your favourite album and what's your experience with that album?
Well, it was when I was growing up. The most aware time of your life is in your mid to late teens. You're picking things up, you're exploring life, you're moving on, you're doing stuff and so on. It's Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Absolutely amazing album. Yeah. And when it came out, it was so different to anything the Beatles had done before, because the Beatles had done the sort of very traditional 60s music that just happened
please me.
Please, please. Yeah, okay. It's pretty dreadful, actually, isn't it?
Well, but it's dreadfully great. You can understand how people at the time were, because they'd never heard anything like it. But now, obviously, but I think that's sort of it's frozen in time.
Pepper's was partly electronic, clearly partly psychedelic, incredibly imaginative, and very, very powerful songs within it, and very powerful messages of social poverty, exclusion and imagination and so on. And to me, it was utterly extraordinary, this thing coming out. A lot of the people that thought they loved the Beatles and really were of the please, please me generation said, oh, God, they've gone a bit funny, haven't they? Oh, these Beatles, they've gone a bit funny. Are they all right?
It's the drugs.
Drugs. That's what it was. It was all drugs, apparently. I just thought it was an amazing album, and it still is. Do you listen to it?
Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it?
I think it's incredible.
And that was produced, 60 years ago?
Yeah, and what they did, the way they revolutionised recording techniques is amazing. And we still use those techniques today.
I know he's not a name that people like to talk about, but Phil Spector and production of Ike and Tina Turner, River Deep Mountain High. What an amazing piece of music. I remember listening to that as a young person, and the way River Deep Mountain High. Fantastic piece of music. I mean, how did they get to it? Because they didn't have the kind of digital recording we have now. It was all pretty primitive electronic stuff at the time.
I was just listening to an interview with Mark Ronson and how him and Amy Winehouse were making Back to Black, and how it would, it was just how do you get that feeling in a room? Where does it come from? It's magic. It is magic.
But you have to have the time, the money, and the facilities. And who these days of a young aspiring musician could afford to be into a really expensive studio for a week at a time, developing music? The Beatles could only do that towards the end of their career because they had enough money to say we want the studio for a month because they could afford it. Everybody else went in an hour at a time.
And we don't want all artists to come from a privileged background.
Hence my point about music and People Arts Premium. Why is it it's the private schools that do music and the state schools that are increasingly cutting it, and great teachers like our friend here being cast aside?
Yeah.
Because you didn't teach computer science.
I'm going to ask you one last question, Jeremy, and this is a great chat. Thank you for joining us. You know, this is...
Well, we nearly finished.
I think so. How are we doing on time? Oh, we got loads of time. I was thinking how I got into music, and I can only think of this retrospectively. I was going to Watford Football Club as a teenager.
Well, you'd have to dream of something if you're going to Watford, wouldn't you?
Well, I think there's something in that as well. If you're in Watford, you want to get away from the car parks somehow. But I think being...
So the football is better than the car parks?
Just about.
Okay.
You're in a place where everyone is there for one reason. Everyone is
to get away from the
along,
car parks.
To get away from the Watford multi-storey car parks. I see that when I go to a gig, you know, and there is an elevation there when you go into a room and...
Yeah, you go to escape.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go to a football match because you do not know what the result's going to be. You all think you do, but you don't. And so it's one of the pleasurable uncertainties in life. I mean, I follow quite a few sports, actually, basically for escapism. So I kind of check on football results and cricket scores and so on and so on. And it's for escapism because it's the pleasurable uncertainty of it. I don't know what the result's going to be. And I do the BBC predict the score every week. And I'm beating AI at the moment.
That's good. I've never used that.
I'm 40 points ahead of AI on my result prediction. So AI can go to the back seat.
Are you going to be watching the Ashes?
Probably.
Do you care about the cricket? It's overnight now. So.
I follow. I like T20 because it's fast and moves very quickly. I mean, sometimes a 5-day test match can be fascinating. Sometimes it can be a bit of a slog and a drag. But
that's the journey of it.
Exactly. But I always dream of the West Indies coming back and being world champions again. So whenever the Windies are playing, I'm following it very, very closely. They've got to come back some point. I suppose the problem is that the money going into the Caribbean is all from American football and baseball.
101 part-time jobs. You have had lots of jobs. I mean, doing your job now has 101 parts to it. But before you were doing what you're doing now, I've got a short list here. You were a geography teacher in Jamaica as a 19-year-old.
Yep.
You were a journalist at the Newport and Market Drayton Advertiser.
Market Drayton Advertiser.
Market Drayton, excuse me.
It's a very important town in North Shropshire.
You were a pig farmer.
Yes.
Which I imagine led you to become a vegetarian. There's part of the story there. Yeah. And obviously you were a trade unionist. Well, not obviously, but sort of unsurprisingly, you were a trade unionist at a tailor's. When you were doing those jobs, you know, I think a lot about how now, because I am one of them and we are in that generation of people who could leave school and borrow a lot of money to go to university, come out of university and actually...
Spend the rest of your life paying it off. Yeah.
Exactly. But not only that is, well, even if you do get a job now, it's quite hard to move out of your parents' house. You have to get lucky in a few different situations, cheap rent or help or whatever it is. When you were doing those jobs, did you feel confident in your ability to kind of live a life where you could buy a house? That was the time.
Yeah, that was, you don't appreciate it at the time, but there was that sort of sense of kind of security. We'll be okay. We'll get a job. We'll be all right. I remember turning up in London, hitchhiked to London, got out of a lorry on Holloway Road, and then renting a room that day.
Yeah.
Just go to a newsagent. You look down the cards. Room £5 a week. You know, share bathroom. Own hot water, great. Yeah. Own hot.
Remember that one?
So you take the card. Probably had to give the newsagent something, but maybe not. Then go to that address with the card, and the guy, oh, okay, that was it.
Yeah, yeah.
Now,
no deposit.
No
references.
No. Nothing.
I mean, it's actually quite impossible now.
Absolutely nothing. You just literally move. And I had later on another room quite near here, and just the other side of Seven Sisters Road, Wilberforce Road, and the landlord he was a bit of a wide boy, really. Well, they all were, and the rooms were actually taller than they were wide because he was a dab hand with the hardboard partitions. This room here we could get 10 rooms out of this at least. Hardboard partitions all round, and it wasn't particularly expensive, this place. And he he liked to spend quite a lot of time with the horses, mainly in the bookies, but he wasn't very good at it. So I'll just give you an example. One Saturday evening, I'm in my room. This is sort of 6 o'clock on Saturday. He comes banging on the door. And I said, "Oh, what do you want?" He said, "I've come for the rent." I said, "Well, it's not due till next Friday. I paid you yesterday, by the way." He says, "Yeah, but listen, I'll give you £1 off if you pay me now." Because I've got to pay somebody down the road. So he comes around collecting his own debts by giving us discounts. So we ended up moving into his economy, not our own.
Yeah.
He wasn't actually a bad guy. He was just, you know.
Do you think you could have started a band there? I mean, just hypothetically, do you think you could have been a musician there? If you found a couple of mates and you were playing a pub down the road, play a few covers, play a few originals, do you think you'd be able
we could
to
have done quite easily, because even where I grew up in a small town in Shropshire, we could have done that, because there were enough pubs that were... Well, the town had far too many pubs in it. It was then a town of 5,000 people with about 20 pubs. Do the math, it can't work. Yeah. So if somebody turn up and say, "Can we play in the pub next Thursday?" Yeah, please do.
Need some entertainment.
Anything that brings 6 people in is worth it, you know. And so, yeah, I mean, you could have quite easily done one. And then you didn't need electronic stuff. You could just do acoustic guitars, which were costly, but not not impossible.
Do you remember the sort of cultural... I grew up playing in bands.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my whole background.
What age were you when you started in the band?
14, 15. I had a youth centre.
What, from school or from youth club or something?
Outside of school. Yeah, it was an act of rebellion, really. But I had a very supportive mum and dad who would ferry me to gigs and band practices. We had a youth centre where we could play a gig and get paid in pizza and Coca-Cola. And we had this economy as a teenager that didn't kind of require... I'm very fortunate. I got bought a guitar. I got bought a second-hand bass when I was 14, and then a trumpet. And then between those two instruments, I joined bands and very quickly realised it was a vehicle to have experiences that the other kids in my school couldn't have, or maybe wouldn't give themselves.
Even that small investment, which probably was not particularly expensive.
One last question. I feel like it's sort of been littered throughout this chat, but in a sentence or two, what would you do to change the future of music in Britain? Because it is in a really sorry state. We can't just be reminiscent of Oasis and the Stones. It's nearly dead, that. You know, there's only a few more years that we can keep on celebrating the legacy of those bands who started 30 years ago. What would you do to change the future and help the future of British music?
I find it very strange that we are still enjoying and celebrating music that seemed almost out of date when I was a kid. And I'm not a young person anymore, but please keep that to yourself. Don't go telling anybody about that. There's a lot of things which we've discussed. It is about music in schools. It is about giving people access to their own creativity. We shouldn't always be spectators in our lives. We should be participants. And that is a key point. So don't do what my music teacher did to me, saying, "Get out, you're useless." There's no such thing as non-musical. There's no such thing as non-poetic or non-inspirational. Everybody's got ideas. They need to have the confidence to be able to express those ideas. So that's important. So getting kids talking. So less testing, more talking is a good idea in school, in the sense of getting people doing things. One. Secondly, funding it, which we've talked about, pupil arts premium schools. Thirdly, this is the key area, is what you do about music opportunities in our community, access to community spaces, access to youth centres, access to venues. And so you can give a tax break for live music venues, for example, as a way of encouraging them. Around here, there used to be every single pub all over North London had live music. It was the norm. You'd have some guys in. A lot of Irish music played all around here for years and years. Now there are... in my area, probably about 3 pubs that play live Irish music. Maybe 4. That's about it. The
amount of pubs you can see that, they're now Paddy Powers, but they were pubs. Happens a lot in Lewisham, where I live.
Yeah.
And you hear about stories.
Does Paddy play or what?
I don't think so. But Squeeze would have played there. Dire Straits would have played there.
Exactly. And so it is giving those opportunities. Then the next thing is a more complex point about how creative musicians actually get any payment for it. Now, there was a time when you would be paid for a venue and you would hope that some record label would turn up, hear you, like you, and give you a contract. Some of those contracts were deeply abusive and very unfair on the musicians. So you've got young, impressionable musicians think, oh, I'm great. And they were actually being grotesquely exploited by agents and labels. And so there is a question there about fairness. But now, with everything online, I don't fully understand how most musicians ever make any money at all, other than when they can get a gig or a venue somewhere, which is very hard to get.
Yeah.
And
if they get a deal, they get an advance, which you have to pay back. It's a loan.
Yeah, it's a loan.
It's a bank
and
loan.
So if you get to play a big open air concert, Glastonbury or whatever, fantastic. But that's really hard to get that opportunity. And so we are losing out on a vast amount of musical talent. We're destroying it by the impoverishment of people. So you could get somebody who's really actually quite brilliant, but maybe not properly recognised, who spends 10 years oiking themselves around the country, doing gigs wherever they can find a venue with quite small numbers of people. They've actually often produced quite good music. And then by the time they get sort of after 10 or 15 years doing this, their family partner says, come on, you're not making any money out of this. This isn't helping to pay the rent.
Yeah.
So they give up.
Yeah.
So, and we are all the weaker for that.
Absolutely.
So we lose that creativity by that person. Our society and our community and our whole lives are weakened. Music empowers, excites, and gives a lot of people real opportunities. So let's get live music venues, have music education, and have real opportunities to perform live music. Make our society more musical.
Thank you, Jeremy.
That's enough of Barnes and Barnaby. You're welcome.
Barnaby. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Cheers for watching. This is 101 Part-Time Jobs. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, and all podcast apps. We've done interviews with Aurora, KNEECAP, Idols, Lauren Maybury of Churches, and loads more. So tap into 101 Part-Time Jobs on Spotify, Apple, and all podcast apps.